Taitz, Dr. Geffen book. So I adore both.
Thank you. I just want to start by saying thank you to Zibby's bookstore and Samantha, and of course thank you so much to Vicki and Wendy from Semel Institute, and thank you all. I know it's a little cliche, but I hope that you give yourselves a big pat on the back for being here early on a Sunday morning. And if you're watching at home, you equally deserve a pat on the back for choosing this among a lot of other content to work on personal growth at this moment. Thank you. And thank you, of course, to Robin, who is my dear friend, and who truly you'll come to realize that this is not just a nice thing I'm saying, but she is like the Oprah of psychiatrists.
Oh man, that's way too nice. Way too nice. So I just want to say that I have read a million self-help books in my day. I'm old, and I have read a million. This is far and away my favorite, for real, for absolute. When I was reading this, I was like, I was like underlining what starring. It is so useful in an age of anxiety, in an age of teen depression and teen anxiety and stress and the internet and the tsunami of mental health problems we're seeing. This is like antidote. So I cannot imagine the amount of work, but the ripple effect of this book is going to be enormous, absolutely enormous. I love it. So, speaking of stress, and speaking of what's going on with teenagers and with young children, and what I see in my office every day doing parenting consultations, talk about emotions being contagious. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so stress, we all know from personal experience, if we're sitting across from someone super anxious, we might start to feel a little anxious ourselves. And anger, if someone had a terrible day at work, it is so understandable that they're going to come home and dump it on us, maybe take unjustified anger out on us, and then we are sitting and feeling angry. And this is not just like a nice idea, but mirror neurons really exemplify this, that we really catch on other people's emotions. But the hopeful news is that emotion regulation is also so contagious. And so a huge motivator for stress resets is not just for us, but to create a positive ripple effect with the people around us. And the small things can make a profound difference. You know, in my practice, so many people tell me how badly they feel when they let the stress that they're experiencing lead to taking it out on their child or taking it out on their partner in front of their child. And a moment of awareness and a doable strategy can totally turn things around. And obviously it's hard, but it's so much harder to clean up a big mess after we have reacted from our emotion mind or a place where emotions are governing.
So when you say emotion regulation, that just means managing feelings, right? Is that managing feelings would be your definition of emotion regulation?
Yeah, learning how to think more flexibly and act in a way that aligns with your values. And these things sound big and complicated, but I wholeheartedly believe that you can do this oftentimes in a matter of minutes, truly. Doing something as simple, I know this doesn't sound that appealing, but it works very well. But doing something as simple as taking an ice bowl, a salad bowl, fill it with ice water, submerging your head for 30 seconds.
Wim Hof in a bowl.
And a cold plunge challenge just for your face. Doing something as simple as that, if you were wearing an Apple Watch, immediately lowers your heart rate. Do not do this if you have cardiac conditions, because it's not recommended, but for people that don't. And so many things, I mean, we all know this. If something less dramatic is even when, we're in the middle of an argument with someone and our phone rings and it's someone that brings a smile to our face, we can quickly change the channel. And so we just need to remember that these things aren't that hard. And instinctive as it is to act on our emotions, we have so much freedom, and we can really feel like the Iron Man in our own lives by learning that we can recalibrate in a matter of minutes.
It's so empowering when you say that. So like you're upset, you're frustrated, you throw your head in water. Any other tools that you love that for that issue? Yes.
She's
got endless ones. She's not. She has like 75 of them.
I mean, it's so hard because different things work for different people at different moments. And so I want everyone to have a lot of tools. I divide the book into resets and buffers for your mind, your body, and behavior. And so we need to, for sure with our mind, we need to think more flexibly. With our bodies, we need to learn that we can take a deep breath on purpose, that we can relax our face. I love doing a very subtle smile. We could all practice this together, called a half smile, where you ever so slightly raise the corners of your lips, and that automatically relieves any tension in your forehead. And doing so creates this landscape where we start to accept from the outside in. It's very hard to imagine if you're sitting in traffic and clenching that you're going to feel at ease. If you can start with your face because of the facial feedback loop, we start to kind of create this stance that allows us to think less judgmentally. And so there's so many. And of course, our behaviors, we want to act differently than what our emotions going 100 miles an hour want us to do. So even just slowing down and doing something different than the emotion is pulling you towards. So if you want to yell, maybe gently avoiding, or if you want to, over explain why something really upset you, maybe giving the benefit of the doubt can be super helpful.
I love that. And you glossed over such an important one point I want to circle back to is rigidity and mental health issues. And I don't know if people connect that, but I think about that in terms of parenting. If you're parenting toward rigidity, you're parenting away from mental health. So you mentioned that. Talk about rigidity in your world and what tools to go away from rigidity. So rigidity is, I'm terrible, it's awful, this is the worst day, everything's very black and white.
Yeah, I mean, I think the ultimate goal, we all want to feel resilient and psychologically flexible, which is allowing discomfort in the service of something bigger. So of course these things do take effort, but psychological flexibility and looking at studies of why therapy works, this is one of the tools that we find is actually one of the pathways to mental health is being more flexible. We want to be like palm trees rather than kind of a tree that's going to snap quickly. And this is something just personally as a parent, I'm constantly trying to model and teach. And I'm looking at my daughter here who introduced this quick anecdote.
Good, we love an anecdote.
I got permission to share this, but my daughter swims on the UCLA swim team, and it was pouring rain, and she said, "Do I have to go to swim team in the rain?" And I said, "Well, I wonder what it's like to swim in the rain. Like, I've never swam in that kind of rain. Like, I wonder what it's like." And she ended up going, and she was like, that was delightful. Like, that was like so cool. I have never done that. And so I think constantly in our lives, it's easy if something doesn't go our way, if we don't sleep the exact number of hours, if someone doesn't give us the message that we want, when we're vulnerable, it's easy to start getting lost in like, this is terrible, this is the worst. But to really approach life with some flexibility and curiosity, and one just very practical way to try to do this is even creating a pie chart, because sometimes when something bad becomes all-consuming, it's so helpful to create a visual of like all of the areas of your life that matter. If something is not going well at work, having a reminder of like all the things that you care about, whether it's health, relationships, giving back to the community, so getting that disappointing rejection doesn't come at the expense of like, oh my gosh, my whole life is terrible, I'm going to give up on everything. We have a balanced perspective, and so we want to do this with our behavior, like Sylvie did with her swim team, or with our minds, like we do in the visual pie chart.
I love that, and I love also as a parenting person the example of distress tolerance. So what's happening so much is, oh, it's too hard, it's raining, you don't have to go. It's like, well, life, you gotta go, right? Oh, you don't feel like going to school, let's not go to school. It's like we're pandering to the lowest common denominator, treating someone like they're fragile, and they're fragile. And then your tools are all about how to move toward distress, tolerate it, and then get through it.
Absolutely. And just to be clear, the goal was not the swim team. The goal is learning psychological flexibility. Like, this is a first-hand opportunity to stretch your comfort zone and do that.
Yes, stretch your, and I love your line. You say, the downside of being a human is we have a knack for making hard times harder. So we talk about, we really do. It's so well put. Dr. Taitz.
Can you speak up just a little bit louder?
Yes.
On this direction.
Yes. So one of the downsides of being human is we easily, when something is hard, we start thinking the worst. You cannot fall asleep. I'm going to have a terrible day tomorrow. I'm going to ruin all of the hard work I put in. Things are going to be awful. Or you get disappointing news and we project it into the future. It's going to get worse and worse. Or ambiguous news about a health thing. We automatically assume we're on the road to downfall. And then that understandably leads to physical sensations in our bodies, like tension. And then that automatically leads us, once our minds and our bodies feel like they're rebelling against us, we can easily start to engage in behaviors that are immediately rewarding, like comfort foods and online shopping, but that take us away from our long-term goals, or even going on social media, which is a stressor, not a stress reliever. And those things take us away from our long-term goals. And so just a moment of awareness can totally shift things. People often associate mindfulness as something that's formal and 20 minutes and in a certain cushion and a certain time, but we can infuse our moments with a lot of mindful awareness. We can just in a quick moment, anchor ourselves, feel our feet on the ground. We could all do this together right now. Feel our feet on the ground, do a quick 3-point check. What am I thinking? What am I feeling? What am I doing? And coming back to the demands of this moment. And so just in a matter of milliseconds, we have a chance, it's like a revolving door to come back to the current moment rather than the worst case scenario and the behaviors that we're trying so hard to move away from. And it's just one example of a mindfulness technique, but there are so many that I talk more about. Even slowing our breathing down to breathe for 5 seconds in, 5 seconds out is a very short mindfulness practice that is so powerful. It lowers blood pressure. And in doing research for this book, I was blown away by the fact that a psychiatrist affiliated with Columbia University, Dr. Patricia Gervarg, and her partner, Dr. Richard Brown, actually found that prescribing this specific breathing strategy helps people in disaster zones find a sense of peace, even with horrors going on around them. And I was so moved by this finding that a portion of the proceeds of this book is going to their foundation, the Breath, Body, Mind Foundation, which is teaching that our own, we think coping is from the outside in, but really our body is our best pharmacy.
Yeah, literally a walking pharmacy, right? Who needs benzos? Who needs Valium when you can just get the no side effects with the breathing, right? It's a powerful tool. I had your book, I have it on my table in my office, and a woman who had a high school kid who was taking his SATs was totally stressed out. And so she said, can I buy this book? Whatever, I gave it to her. And he talked about singing. This kid was upset about the SATs, and he started singing his worries about the SATs. So tell that tip, because I think that's such a good one.
So all of us have thoughts, like literally 80 to 99% of people have thoughts that are unwanted and that aren't helping them. So we all have thoughts that we need to attend to that are useful. I need to get these things done on my to-do list. I need to follow up with these people. But we also have so many thoughts that are just the mental equivalent of spam. Yeah. And so
I love that.
So rather than getting lost in them or talking to other people about how unworthy and imposter-like we feel, what if we could sing those thoughts? What if we can, sing a certain thought that haunts you, like no one likes me, or I'm a loser, or if people realized how unlovable I was, that they would run far away. What if we sang a thought that is recurrent and intrusive and not helpful to a tune that's upbeat? Like, I love the song Do You Believe in Magic, because just listening to that is so enjoyable and uplifting. But even something like that, where we quickly take something that's upsetting to us and make it humorous, and it also just gives us a dose of perspective that just because something's in your mind doesn't mean it's true, helpful. I think that we need to constantly ask ourselves, is this helpful or not helpful? And singing the unhelpful thoughts is one quick way to make them, playful rather than
And it makes neural sense. So from a brain standpoint, you can't sing a happy, do you believe in magic, and say, I'm going to bomb my SATs at the same time. So it actually, there's so much science behind it.
Exactly.
That's incredible. Talk a little bit about validating, because to the portion of CBT, the work you do in DBT, validating is so powerful. Like when everybody wants to fix and say, oh, you had a bad day, you should have done this, you should have done that, versus, oh, poor baby, right? But then validating and also speaking toward the strength. Tell us about all that.
Yeah. So often the thing that I hear most from adults in my practice is what they're looking for in relationships, whether romantic, with their parents, with their friends, is someone making them feel seen, understood, almost like the verbal equivalent of a hug.
And I was off that.
And, I don't know if people have seen that video of the hammer. It's not about the nail.
Yeah.
This woman has a nail wedged in her forehead and is telling her partner how painful it is, and he wants to remove it. And
he's like, just pull out the nail. Actually, but I have a headache. He goes, pull out the nail.
All she wants is him to communicate. That must really hurt. And that's also what we all want.
The poor baby.
Right. That's also what we all want. But something that we also need to remember is finding this balance between validating and not letting someone get into co-ruminating, which is when we validate too much. If someone's upset, or specifically, even in this room, parents, if you want to help your child, maybe unearthing why something was upsetting and why it happened, and really overdoing the feelings, can lead to someone getting in the habit of overthinking, re-experiencing. And we know that rumination, the habit of overplaying and going into circular dead ends about how bad something was with no kind of lens towards solving, is so unhelpful. And so we want to kind of balance really validating with also really helping someone enter the moment. And so I think this is just also a matter of like, validate first, emotions come down, and then you could work towards problem solving. So we don't just want to validate and not.
Beautiful. I think that was lost in translation in the last decade. It's like, oh, you don't feel like going to school. Oh, this is so hard. You don't. All of this over validating. So you can validate but not condone that behavior, right?
Yeah,
So you're not
validate to lead to change. Exactly.
Yes.
And one of the things I love about your work is Permission to Parent is all about using parenting as an opportunity not only to grow your children, but to grow yourself. And so also working on self-validation. If we're
I love. Tell us about self-validation. Now, there's the money. There it is. She got the chair. Tell us about self-validation. You are right on. Tell us about that.
Yes, so not only do we need to validate others, but how often are we invalidating of ourselves? Why am I overreacting? Why did I make this faux pas? And to normalize, like, I'm human. Of course, given X, Y, and Z, this thing happened. And so I think this mix of like giving to ourselves the things we want to receive from other people and also giving it to other people in a way that's really thoughtful and strategic and empowering is so helpful.
And it's such an antidote to all those negative thoughts you said.
Absolutely. Self-validating. It's like we're looking for it in rumination, but we're missing it by replaying, re-experiencing. We think that we're like self-validating, but that is totally different than normalizing the normal. Of course, I feel disappointed given how much work I put in or how much I care about this relationship.
And speaking of normalizing the normal, one of your aha points to me, which is so obvious, but you never really think about it, is that befriending stress. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because I thought that was just unbelievable.
Yes, so
The
many of
heart
us-
rate, the studying for a test.
Yeah, so this is also something that I find so personally helpful, but so often we think stress is bad. Like, I don't want to be stressed. I don't want to feel any physical signs of excitement. But I don't know if I'm the only person in this room that's felt this way, but has anyone gone on a vacation where they felt like there was not enough going on and they were starting to feel a little uncomfortable? Like, too many days on a lounge chair is not the path to well-being. And so many of my clients that are in between jobs and bored are really struggling with their mood and anxiety, and those thoughts that we want to sing are like in large letters and all-consuming, replaying in a loop. And so really realizing that stress is just the price of a meaningful life. We are all...
I love that line. Stress is the price of a meaningful life.
We're all going to experience stress, and also we're all going to experience physical sensations that are actually serving us. And in studies with college students, first generation college students that are taught this combination of stress can be enhancing. Stress is normal. Everyone feels stress when you go to college. Anyone that's pretending that they don't is lying to you. And also your body, knots in your stomach, you could turn those into bows. That means you're performing well. The combination of learning those two things, that you can grow, stress is an opportunity for growth, and your body is helping you. If you're sweaty, if your heart is racing, that is helping you. People that learn those two things
Helping you because
it's performance enhancing. It is, we have to accept it as performance enhancing. It's an opportunity to be flexible. Those things actually lower your cortisol and also correlate with increased academic performance. So this is just a nice idea, but it helps you persist in hard tasks.
I think that's incredible. So in accepting, making friends with stress is like, oh, it's helping me study for a test or take a test, my heart's beating, actually physiologically lowers your cortisol.
And yeah, it's so draining to be fighting your body. It is so
Beautiful.
it's like a finger trap. The more that you try to fight your body and fight normal emotions, which is so self-invalidating, is the path to more stress. It's like stress on top of stress rather than stress plus acceptance. It's like cheering yourself on.
I love it. And also your concept that feelings are fleeting. Talk about, or emotions come in waves. Tell us about that.
One of the most powerful things that I teach actually at UCLA in a group that I run with anxiety disorder patients includes this very funny thing that most people are shocked that we're doing, but it includes watching very short film clips. We watch brief clips where someone is very primed to feel very sad. It's like a deathbed scene. We watch a brief clip where someone is going to feel anxious, like a gun violence scene. We just do this for a minute, and people actually write down that they feel very anxious, very depressed. Then we end with a happy scene, and this is something that people always say that at the end of the group they love and constantly remind themselves of, because we often think that, oh my gosh, I have to avoid stress because I can't feel my emotions, they're too overwhelming, or I can't deal with my emotions, and then that leads to stress because you're procrastinating, postponing, or avoiding difficult conversations. But if we holistically, just like we need to improve our view of stress, we also need to improve our view of emotions, and really appreciating that they are full of wisdom and that they're also so transient, right? Emotions come in waves, and at 1 minute we can feel moved to tears by a really poignant film, and then the next moment we could be wanting to dance in our seat because we're listening to a happy song. And obviously our life is not full of just changing the channel, but we constantly have the opportunity to re-enter the moment. And you're upset about something that happened to you this morning, but then there's a cute puppy on your walk to work, and you do have kind of an inroad towards it.
And I think that's such a helpful tool of parenting teenagers who are very typically black and white. It's the worst day. It's the best day. I hate this. I love this. And you're on this bumpy teeter-totter. And I think that whole concept of it's fleeting, this will pass. So I love how you talked about that. Tell us about one of my all-time favorites is opposite action. Tell us about that one. And radical acceptance.
Yeah, so if you were going to ask me how to explain, like, what is the most powerful tool in mental health from a behavioral perspective, I really believe learning to choose your behaviors independent of how you feel. And so all emotions have certain corresponding behavioral components. When we're anxious, we want to avoid. When we're angry, we want to yell. When we are sad, we want to withdraw. To change any emotion, we need to change how we act. A lot of times we think, like, when I feel motivated, then I'll do this hard thing. But really, if we want to feel able to reset our stress in a matter of minutes, we need to be able to know that you can choose the way you want to act independent of how you feel. And this obviously includes so much acceptance of, like, the difficult thoughts and feelings that might come with choosing your behaviors. But I think it's so liberating to know that you are sticking to your values and your highest wisdom rather than however you feel, which might be, not what's most ultimately helpful.
And another, because you've been my CBT, DBT mentor, because I'm too old to have even, they didn't even have DBT when I was training. And that whole concept of holding two feelings is also neuro. Talk about that with you.
Yeah, I think you can fully accept that this, maybe you are anxious and you don't feel like being a good friend right now, but you are committed to meeting your friend who's going through an even harder time. Mm-hmm. And it's okay. Again, I think we get into some perfectionism of I have to be totally in the right mood and do it 100%. Mm-hmm. But I think being really, choosing the best you can do in the moment and celebrating that, and
that's beautiful. That's beautiful. It's like for little kids, you could say, I'm crying because they lost the race. I'm so sad you lost the race. And you can also be happy for your friend at the same time.
I love that.
It's that both. Mm-hmm. And they're just endless tools in here. What was the story about the Century City Mall and no elevator?
Oh, yes. And I just want to also add, I think for opposite action can change your whole, child's life.
Yeah.
If you live an opposite action lifestyle and teach your children to live an opposite action lifestyle, that can be so freeing. And so one of my children was concerned about escalators. And, I as a behavior therapist, when they said, I only want to ride in the elevator, I was like, no, we're not going to. You give fear an inch and it takes a mile. The Century City Mall does not have elevators. We only have escalators. And so really, I think we tend to overly accommodate and find that the more we love our children, the more understandably we want to make accommodations and create a world that avoids all discomfort. But the more we can see,
that's such a bad idea. Don't do that.
Yeah, but the more we can create a life that mirrors real life, which is full of needing to stretch yourself and rise to the occasion. And so after a couple of rides on Century City Mall, I think even just one, multiple floors of Century City Mall, you have a few rides on the escalator, and there goes the elevator phobia. But if I had escalator phobia, but if I had accommodated, then that would be years in therapy.
So you did exposure therapy at Century City Mall.
In one session, giving a quick dose to kids is like preventive medicine for adults.
It really is. I love that story because that, I think, is the last decade of the treating them like they're fragile, they stay fragile, to, you're scared of the escalators, let's go get the elevator. You're scared of elevator, let's go. And you just end up making a life smaller and smaller. And I think your tools speak to the strength in such a powerful way. tell us more of anything that I've forgotten to ask you. Because there's got to be so much.
Yeah, no, I just want everyone to walk away with a sense that you can improve how you feel in a matter of minutes. You don't need long medications, or martinis. And I'm happy to answer any questions people have. And these are all the tools that have personally changed my life and that I wanted to spread with a larger audience that I can see in my office for the cost of a salad in Los Angeles. And these are things that I truly find are life-changing for me and really affect how I parent and how I pursue treating my clients, and they're too wonderful to board.
And I honestly, if I think every high school, like freshman year, you should get stress resets and give it to your high school students. Because or give it to your college student if they missed out at high school, because it's that helpful. Jen, Dr. Taitz, you wrote such a good book. It is so practical, and it's so user friendly, and and I love how it's so backed in research too. I mean, you really did your research, and you've pulled together all of the wisdom of all of the researchers in this one super accessible, easy, friendly book. And I thank you for writing it, because it's such a powerful tool, and we need it so badly.
And I feel the same way about
We need it so badly.